Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next weekly tips for parents. Thank you for filling in our survey that Lynn sent out to you last week. And we decided that the first one that we'll start at from feedback from parents is about how to keep kids motivated during COVID times. So we're going to just start with a few general ideas, and then Lynn and Emma are going to take you on a little journey through some motivational strategies to help our children. So one of the first things that we really want to think about is checking in with our kids frequently. I'm sure you've heard through class Zooms or small group Zooms how teachers are checking in with their own students, and they're checking in on what they need and how to proceed with their day, checking in on feelings. So we've given you 3 examples here of what might be helpful for you to have at home, but we would highly encourage you to think about ways you could have check-in charts with your kids at home. And you might even find ways and things that motivate them. So for example, if your child is really into Minecraft, you might be making a motivational check-in chart with them about how they're feeling and which character they might be feeling about. But here's 3 examples that you could use. One is just a simple zone chart, checking in to note how they're feeling, checking in what they could do about that if they're lying in one of the different zones. You've heard us talk before about this circle of control and this idea that in the middle is what we can control. And it's important to think about all the things inside of that. We can control the way we work, we can control where we work, we can control how we work. Right now, we can't control the outside things like COVID that we're all anxiously waiting to finish, but we want to zoom in on the things that we can, and setting a daily intention of what you can control each day and kind of reflecting back on that can be really helpful. And the last example on the screen is just another way to check your battery. How are you feeling? And we also encourage that you do this yourself so that you can check in with your kids, you can compare in your family, and you can see at different times of the day when your battery might be lower or higher. And what could you do to note that? How could you change, and what might you be able to do to help that current feeling that you're having? Another thing that we'd like to suggest is leading by example. We all know right now that times are difficult, and that leading by example is one of the most wonderful things that we can do for our children. Having that idea of a flexible mindset and remembering that the glass is not half full or half empty, but it's refillable. What are we doing to recharge when every day does seem like Groundhog Day? We know we wake up and we seem like things are going to repeat again and again, but how can we lead by example for our children and show them that it is refillable each day, even though times are tough? And you know, we keep saying, be positive, be positive. It's also okay to not be okay at times. And we want to honor that with our kids and find out the reasons maybe why that day in particular they're feeling that way, and talk about that as well too. And lastly, it's just this idea of building their work ethic. There's lots of discussion in the education world, and I know parents, we're worried, are kids going to be okay? Are they going to move forward? But children are still learning. We're learning very differently than we ever imagined a year ago, but we're still learning key skills that children need in school. And in fact, they're learning them in a different way. Organization, their technology, their technology skills that they've learned have really just gone, through a huge uptick, and it's amazing what kids can produce. And that learning is a lifelong goal. It's a lifelong vision that we have to have. And for right now, the learning looks different because of the models and how we're learning. But we can always learn, and we want to build this ethic in our children as we move forward. I'm going to pass it over to Emma, who's going to talk a little bit more on motivational strategies.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. So both Lynn and I are just going to talk through some more specific things that you can do at home with your children during those times where you're feeling like it's hard to get them started and hard to get them to stay on task and focused with the work that they need to do for the day. So one of the first things that we want to talk about today, if we can go to the next slide, is focusing on the effort that your children put into their work as opposed to the end product. Now, of course, we would love for our kids to get the right answers in their math work and have everything spelled perfectly and produce a wonderful piece of writing. But here at ISKL, we believe that the most important thing that our kids are doing is trying new things, making mistakes, and taking a risk. And so you can help to emulate that thought and that belief at home by focusing on how kids are going about doing their work and celebrating that with them. So for example, in math, celebrating if your child is trying lots of different strategies in different ways, even if they're still not able to successfully get to the answer that they need. And in writing, similar thing, we can help kids to celebrate how hard they worked to sound out a word or to rework their sentence, even if at the end it's still not spelled quite right. We're really focusing on that effort. And then please encourage your children to post whatever it is that they did. And then that's what the teachers are there for. Teachers are there to help our kids to recognize their mistakes, to learn more together, and to grow together. And at ISKL, we offer opportunities for our kids to learn new things. And so it's really important that we encourage them and make a mistake and have that be okay and part of the process. And that's really helpful if you find that your child is really having a hard time starting and getting things going early enough to be able to finish during the day. You can help them by building in a routine. So we know that lots of families have a schedule and a structure at home, and that's really helpful. And we just wanted to remind you today of the importance of also scheduling in breaks. So lots of kids are getting up in the morning and starting their class Zoom, and then maybe they have another Zoom right after, and then they're trying to get started on their work right away. And that can be, it can also make the day, that morning, feel very long. And so we encourage you to help create a schedule together for the day and have times where there'll be really intentional breaks. At school, we often use first and then charts with kids to show that, first we're going to work on math, these are the expectations, and then you have time for a break. And also agree on what that time looks like. Is that 15 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Lots of kids benefit from setting a timer for that as well. And choose something that they enjoy, that they find fun, that they find relaxing. We also highly encourage you to have this break time be an off-screen time, knowing that they are on their devices for quite a bit of the school day at home. So it can be really helpful to get our kids up and moving, have a snack, or go for a walk, or ride your scooter, anything that kids can do that's a little bit more active and taking a small break from the screen. We know that our students right now are really missing their friends and missing that social piece that they typically, is often one of our biggest tool for getting kids motivated, moving forward, trying new things, and taking risks. So it can be helpful if your child is feeling like they're in a bit of a rut, having a hard time getting started back with this next semester. See if you can get their peers involved. They can meet on Zoom. Some of our older students are finding ways to talk to each other using Google Hangouts and talking on Seesaw. Any way that kids can communicate with other students who are working on the same things as them. They can bounce ideas, they can help each other, or even just have that social support from somebody else to say, hey, this is going really well. I enjoyed doing this activity today. Or the opposite of, I'm finding the math really hard today. It's nice if they can have a friend to share in that discussion with them, and then they can work together through it. So some of our students are meeting on Zoom, other kids are talking through chat, whatever that looks like for your child in your home. We encourage you to link them up with their friends. Great, and I'm going to pass over to Lynn, and Lynn has a few more strategies for motivating your children at home.
Great, thanks, Emma. I appreciate that. So one of the things you want to look at also in terms of motivation is how are we going to celebrate when that work is completed? And every child is motivated by different things when we talk about incentives. So for some kids, it could be spending time on their own doing a project that they like. For some kids, it can be spending time with a special adult or another child, a peer or a family member, sibling of some, in the home. For some, it could be stuff. So for some of our kids, getting a sticker is the best thing on the face of the planet. And so having that is kind of that incentive. Or also just, that praise piece of, you did a great job with this piece of work, and I saw how hard you worked. and sharing that. And so maybe it's a matter of when you finish up, we'll message somebody in the family to say that you did a great job today, and you got everything finished. So different things incentivize different kids. This is a conversation to have with your child of what would be motivating to you. How are we going to celebrate when that work is completed? Making the work special and making the place special is another motivator for our students. So special pens, and maybe we get a different special colored pen. Maybe this week I'm using this special blue pen, and next week I get a special red pen. Can be really exciting for kids and motivating. Different colors of folders is shown here too, but just making that space special. So if we've got this space that we're working and we're able to put up different pictures or phrases that encourage your child to keep working, those can be really important and motivating and just help to make it special to get this work done. Then we've talked about this idea of structure and routine, but we also want to kind of flip that a little bit, because there's going to be times when we just want to mix up that routine. It doesn't mean that we're deciding today we're not doing any work, but maybe we're changing the order a little bit of how we're doing the work. Maybe we're changing the way that we do our break. So maybe break time is snack time usually. And so maybe today for break time, I want to have a race with my sibling and see how quickly we can frog walk across the room. But we just kind of mix up some of these things so that it gives it a little novelty. Maybe today is the day that we mix it up, or the child chooses tomorrow's my mix it up day, and we maybe sit in a different place, or I'm going to do math first instead of my literacy. But just small, simple changes to really kind of make it a little different and novel can help with that motivation. And then we have one last that we just wanted to talk to you about briefly. And this is reaching out and asking for help. And for our kids, Emma mentioned, this idea of posting on Seesaw and this feeling of it's got to be perfect before it goes on Seesaw. But really, the job of all of us at school is to find out where our kids are struggling and help them in those places. And so teaching your child to say to you, to their teacher, I'm struggling because I don't understand what this word means, or I'm struggling because this way to do math doesn't make sense for me yet. I'm struggling because I'm tired. But reaching out and using kind of that sentence starter of I'm struggling because lets you know what your child needs, lets the teacher know what your child needs, and then they can get that support, because there's nothing more demotivating than thinking you can't do something and not being able to get the help you need. So those are some of the strategies and ideas that we have for you for motivation. We really appreciate your time this week. Please remember to reach out to us with any questions you have. We're always here to help you, but we wish you a great week ahead, and we'll see you next week for another parent tip.